King Charles III has made his first visit to the British Parliament as monarch. The new king was greeted by close to 1,000 guests, mostly MPs, including the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson and the current Prime Minister Liz Truss. On behalf of MPs and peers, the Speakers of the House of Lords and the House of Commons pledged loyalty to the King and paid tribute to Queen Elizabeth II.
Her humility and integrity commanded the respect and captured the imagination of peoples and nations across the globe. Her late Majesty's joyous, unstinting and reassuring presence across the years made it difficult to contemplate that her long and inspiring reign of deep and unparalleled devotion would ever end.
And to express to your Majesty our loyalty to you and our conviction that you will strive to uphold the liberties and to promote the happiness of the people in all your realms, now and in years to come.
King Charles III then responded to the condolences and reflected on his mother's legacy.
I am deeply grateful for the addresses of condolence by the House of Lords and the House of Commons, which so touchingly encompass what our late sovereign, my beloved mother, the Queen, meant to us all. Parliament is the living and breathing instrument of our democracy. That your traditions are ancient, we see in the construction of this great hall, and the reminders of medieval predecessors of the office to which I have been called, and the tangible connections to my darling late mother we see all around us, from the fountain in New Palace Yard, which commemorates the late Queen's Silver Jubilee, to the sundial in Old Palace Yard for the Golden Jubilee, the magnificent stained glass window before me for the Diamond Jubilee. She set an example of selfless duty, which, with God's help and your counsels, I am resolved faithfully to follow.
Well, let's go to the ABC's Michael Rowland, who's in Westminster in London, and our Europe correspondent Nick Dole, who's in Edinburgh in Scotland. Michael, to you first. A solemn ceremony we've just witnessed at Westminster Hall for the King's first visit there.
It was, Karina, a very serious affair, in sharp contrast to the a bit more lively affair in the House of Commons in the 24 hours after the Queen died. On that occasion, we heard expressions of condolence from the Prime Minister, from the opposition leader, from former Prime Ministers. This one, as you say, was much more solemn. It is all part of this highly choreographed, highly planned series of traditional events that will be held in the lead up to the Queen's state funeral here in London next Monday. As we just heard, we heard from the speakers of both the House of Commons and the House of Lords expressing their condolences to the King over the death of the Queen, and some lovely words there from the King talking about how much he honours Parliament. Very instructive, because he made it very clear in that first speech after the Queen died that he intended to follow in his mother's tradition, observing the separation between the monarchy and the elected officials. We do know that Prince Charles, when he was the Prince of Wales, was quite activist when it came to environmental issues, architecture, you name it, but he's made it very clear and underscored in this speech that he intends to adopt the role of the constitutional monarch and not meddle in UK politics. So a fairly brief ceremony. The King has left. While he was here, just on top of the building behind me, the Royal Standard was hoisted. Union Jack came down, the Royal Standard was hoisted. for the King while he was there. Also, Karina, a very special moment because this ceremony took place in Westminster Hall in the Palace of Westminster, because in that very space, in 2 days' time, the Queen's coffin will be placed ahead of her lying in state for 4 days ahead of the funeral.
And I wanted to ask you about that, Michael. What's the mood like there? Because we now know that those details about the process for the Queen's lying in state from Wednesday ahead of her funeral on Monday have been released, and we're expecting upwards of 750,000 people to come past, potentially having to maybe queue overnight in order to pay their respects?
Absolutely, Karina. That's a lot of people, isn't it? In fact, where I'm standing on the other side of the palace, there'll be a queue come Wednesday night, or I'd argue even during the day and Wednesday, people lining up. It'll snake all the way from my right here to my left over the bridge leading up to Westminster. Yeah, authorities have urged people to turn up with food, with drink, and as you say, yes, be prepared to wait overnight. I think you'll see a massive outpouring of affection, a massive outpouring of people wanting to come past and silently observe their thoughts, observe the Queen's coffin and pay their respects to the Queen. Back in 2002, when the Queen Mother died, and she too was lying in state in the Hall of Westminster, you quoted that figure, a relatively paltry 200,000 people turned up. But yes, we are talking much more than that as this city, this country, and in fact the world continues to mourn the passing of Queen Elizabeth II.
Nick Dole, let's go to you in Edinburgh in Scotland. Where is the King headed to next?
Well, he'll be here in Edinburgh pretty soon, along with the Queen Consort, Camilla. They're flying in now. They'll come here to the Palace of Holyrood House, the monarch's official residence here in Scotland. And first they'll be taking part in the ceremony of the Keys. Now, that is a tradition that Queen Elizabeth herself took part in for 70 years. When the monarch takes up residence here, it's like a welcoming, really, to the city. Well, now Charles will be taking that official role. After that, he'll be joining his siblings, and they will all be together as they accompany the Queen's body back up the Royal Mile towards St Giles's Cathedral. And at that cathedral, people here in Scotland will have an opportunity to file past her coffin and pay her respects. Later on tonight, there will be a vigil that the Royals will hold at that cathedral. But then on Tuesday, the next stage of the Queen's journey home begins. She'll be getting, her body will be conveyed to a Royal Air Force flight, and it'll be the Princess Royal, Princess Anne, who accompanies her body down to the capital.
And Nick, Prince Harry has recently released a statement on Queen Elizabeth's death. What's he had to say?
That's right. He's put out a statement on his personal website. In it, he has praised the Queen for her service. He says, "We smile knowing that you and Grandpa are reunited now and both are together in peace." Of course, the Duke of Edinburgh died last year, and pretty soon after that we saw the Queen's health really start to deteriorate. In his statement, Harry thanked the Queen for her commitment to service, her sound advice and her infectious smile. And he said in the statement, he said, "Granny, while this final parting brings us great sadness, I'm forever grateful for all our first meetings, from my earliest childhood memories with you, to meeting you for the first time as my Commander-in-Chief, to the first moment you met my darling wife and hugged your beloved great-grandchildren." And that statement from Harry follows one from his brother William a couple of days ago, where he also spoke of just how much his family will miss her. And of course, we saw those two brothers and their partners out the front of Windsor just a couple of days ago, taking in the floral tributes. While their relationship may not be what it once was, certainly both Harry and William seem to be united in their grief and their love for their grandmother.
Nick Dole in Edinburgh and Michael Rowland in London reporting for us.